While business school was conditioning me with the conventional wisdom that in order to win, you need to be fast and you need to be first, the greater wisdom came to me in my earliest years as a child. As I sat on the floor, legs crossed, chin up, eyes fixated on my first grade teacher, Mrs. Sule Maggio. She filled the class with the ancient wisdom of Aesop's tale, the tortoise and the hare. Written 2,500 years prior, she told us the same story.
A hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being slow. "Do you ever get anywhere?" he asked, with a mocking laugh. "Yes," replied the tortoise, "and I will get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it." The hare was much amused at the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the idea, he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to act as a judge, marked the distance and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel silly and ridiculous for his idea to try and race with the hare, he lay down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise could catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after a time passed where the hare was sleeping. But the hare slept on very peacefully, and when at last he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal. The hare now ran his swiftest, but he could not overtake the tortoise in time.
The moral of the story: the race does not always go to the swift. While the first mover advantage has always been positioned as the winning paradigm in business, and yes, the strength of intellectual property with regards to a first mover does have merit, there is another paradigm, a counter conviction in methodology, a path which grants, in some instances, an even stronger advantage. It is one that is also held by the innovator, the one who seeks change. That there are those of us who need someone to go first, who need the box established so that we can think outside of it. And there's a reason for that. We believe that being better is more valuable than being first. And today on the podcast, I want to share a strategic principle which really overturns the common first mover advantage assumption. And as an entrepreneur, brand builder, and product developer, for me, it's been very successful in my approach to the market. And it's called the second mover advantage. My name is Sasha, and this is Insights. For those who wait, for those who watch, the quest is not to be the first mover, but to be the great improver. The second mover strategy is a counterintuitive way of winning. It involves waiting for the first mover to dig the dirt while they prove the market idea, set and establish market pricing, and most valuably, establish the market conventions you need to create relevance by trifecting a value proposition that by default can make the first mover irrelevant. And it's not just me who believes this. The Wharton School of Business published results of a comprehensive business study that said 47% of first mover products fail between years 1 and 3. And that's compared to the 8% of those who improved a product by coming in second. And if you are an innovator, you'll agree that proving the market idea, or what I call the confidence campaign, is your biggest cost. The first mover essentially carries all the cost to educate the market about a product, as well as the problem that it solves. And by waiting for the first mover to create the path of awareness, the platform to innovate against that framework has now firmly been established. And whether you are establishing an entirely new market, attacking an existing market from a new angle, or just introducing a game-changing new feature, the associated costs are far larger than putting a new twist on an existing offering. As the second mover, you're putting the onus on the first mover to create a path while burning all the cash and taking all the risk. We're talking about proof of concept, R&D, regulatory, market education. They have no path to follow, no lessons to learn from others. And they'll get to make every mistake first and pay top dollar for it so that you don't have to. Another advantage that the second mover has is using the market pricing as a catalyst for value creation. The first mover sets the price, and because they're first, most times they set the ceiling. The opportunity here is to disrupt thinking patterns by overturning the mindset that just because it's better, it need not be more expensive. And I want to spend some time unpackaging this because the false assumption is that lowering price is just a race to the bottom thing. And it's not when it's done smartly and strategically. And there's actually a model for this, and it's called value-based pricing. And value-based pricing is a strategic model of price setting that relies on the customer's perceived value of the leading first mover product that they're purchasing. And because the first mover has set the ceiling, this data identifies one thing that is very, very important: the customer's willingness to pay threshold. A second mover will use this as the advantage by using the product category profile, which includes the attributes, experience, and price of a particular product. And it's taking that insightful data and intentionally creating quality improvements for the purpose of a greater CX or customer experience and connecting that to a lower price. And we call the recognition of the difference between the lower price and the higher quality experience customer delight. And it'll be interesting for me to break down this model further in another episode. But the third second mover advantage is the market conventions that are established by the first mover. And market conventions are brand departure points, right? They're the established rules, the habitual market behaviors that are no longer questioned. This, my friends, is the seedbed for value disruption. And there are three types of conventions that a first mover establishes that the second mover takes advantage of. The first are human touchpoint conventions, service level interactions that are so expected that they have a diminished perception of value. The second is marketing conventions, right? This is kind of like the thread of what the competitor communicates about themselves and what the customer expects the competitor to communicate about themselves or the players in that market. Let's use Invisalign as an example, right? The first mover has established a conventional marketing behavior around clear aligners. But, what you see is most of the companies that have come behind Invisalign have just copied those conventions instead of using the common communication as the very catalyst for disruptive messaging to pull the market in a new direction. And the third is product conventions. And essentially, the product already does what it's supposed to do. And so the expectation is set, right? The market says this is the way it's supposed to be. Nobody's asking the question. The second mover is the one who asks the question, why does it have to be this way? Listen, of course that there are advantages to being a first mover, but it's very rare. And the reality is most of us are better positioned to be the one that comes second. My hope today is that you would see the opportunity to innovate in a whole new way. Understand the areas in your market that are primed for a takeover. Learn from the successes and the mistakes made from those who have gone before, the leaders, as we call them. Use value-based pricing to increase the quality and experience of an established product, or stack that product with additional value and lower the price to create customer delight. The moral of the story of the tortoise and the hare is the race does not always go to the swift. Thanks again for listening. And if you are finding value by listening to this podcast, please pay it forward. by telling a friend, and of course, a kind review is always welcome. Bye for now.